Welcome to the Game Night High School Football Podcast, a weekly review of all the local high school football games set to be played this weekend. The Game Night Podcast is brought to you by Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get back out on the field. Now we turn it over to our hosts, sports editor Kurt Ritzman and lead sports writer Todd Hummel.
Hello and welcome to Week 12 of our Game Night High School Football Podcast. I'm Kurt. This is Todd.
Hello. I still say we should just use those beginnings.
Oh.
No?
I don't think they quite reach the level that our analysis does later in the show.
Yeah, there you go. You keep telling yourself that.
Week 2 of the playoffs. Last week, the higher-seeded teams went 9-3. On Friday night, only one lower-seeded team won. The 7 higher-seeded teams won by a combined score of 233-35.
This seems to be a passive-aggressive rant against 6 classes.
No, I've got no problem with 6 classes. I'm just pointing out facts.
I don't know if we need this extra week of playoffs, and I've come around to that. I think it was 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago I wrote the column, and I don't wonder. I think we have another year left in this cycle if they don't at least consider going back to the 2 scrimmages and maybe one less week of playoffs. I guess the argument for the extra week of playoffs is those lower seeded schools get an extra week of practice and a little bit more time, a little bit more time to work. But those Friday, the Mount Carmel Southern game, Danville's game on Saturday night, 1 versus 8. Was Wellsboro was the only lower seeded team to win on, or Troy was the only lower seeded team to win on Friday.
Yep, the 5 seed Troy beat number 4 Wellsboro 38-32 in the 2A semis. That was one of only 2 of the 12 first round playoff games that were within 1 score.
It's a lot of blowouts, but
yeah.
I think the Shamokin Loyal Sock, not that Shamokin won. I think that blowout was a little surprising, and those the lower seeded teams, I think that we thought had a chance were only in 3A too. The 6 seed and the 5 seed there, and I look good there.
Yeah,
a blind squirrel finds a nut. I was trying to think of a saying that wasn't obscene that wouldn't get me in trouble. But yeah, again, I don't know what any other solution would be other than, cutting out a week because, with the amount of teams that are getting in with this extra week of playoffs, I don't know, we're forever going to have this in the 7 and 8 seed. Just, like 3 or 4A, only one school didn't make the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 4 schools in 3A and 5 schools in 2A didn't make it, so I don't know how you avoid not having losing teams in the football playoffs unless you lose that extra week.
And or go back to the 4 classes. You don't like that?
Well, I think I think that would be. I don't know. The cat's out of the bag now. I don't know if we're ever going back to 4 classes unless there's a groundswell or they figure out the private versus public debate. Okay. I don't know. I think school districts like the 6 classes. I'm not sure fans. I think fans and reporters are a little less into the 6 classes. But that's all going to go away in the next couple weeks because the 8 seeds and the 7 seeds are eliminated, and I think we have other than maybe these 2A semifinals, I think we have a batch of some pretty good games this week.
Okay. We're going to do it opposite last week. I want to start with the Saturday games, which is the 3A semifinals. Those were the most recent that happened, the quarterfinals there. Shamokin, the 5 seed, coming off a big 39-7 win at Loyal Sock, taking on top-seeded Danville, which won 57-14 over 8-seeded Warrior Run.
So these 2 teams met earlier in the season. It looks like Danville won pretty easily, but that's not really how that game went. Okay. Shamokin was into that game into the 3rd quarter till, Danville went on one of those patented 3-touchdown quick runs in the 3rd quarter to kind of pull away. And we've been talking about this all year with Danville. Danville has struggled at times with penalties, and they had another 11 or 13 or something like that on Saturday night against Warrior Run. I think when I was doing the stats, Danville has 89 penalties this year. Their opponents have 82 penalties, so it's 171 penalties between. No wonder Danville games take forever. But, yeah, I think Danville wins this one. I think this is much closer. We'll see how healthy Bryson James was. They didn't really miss him all that much last week against Loyal Sock. I think that hurts them more defensively this week against Danville. Max Madden did a great job last week running the ball, 189 yards and a touchdown. I think where they're going to miss Bryson if he doesn't play is as an outside linebacker and stopping that sweep game of Peyton Persing and the for Danville, which they really struggled with that first game. Peyton had 209 yards and two scores rushing the ball. Danville quarterback KJ Riley is getting closer to the single season passing yardage record. Look for that this week. He's at 2,333. School record is 2,600 some by Andrew Shoup back in 2008, I believe it was. So take a look for that. Also did a lot on Shane Kozik getting the career catch record for the Ironman last week. Doesn't look like that happened because did a little research, and Michael Smith from those Andrew Shoup years had 117 catches in 2 years. Oh. So Shane has 103 now, I believe. So maybe look for that. Maybe he gets to break the record a week later. So again, I think Danville wins this one, but looks to be much closer. And shout out to Henry Hynoski getting the team into the semifinals that hasn't won more than 3 games in 5 years. I think a lot of people expected Shamokin to be better this year. I'm not sure people expected 3A semifinals, chance at a championship. But again, I think Danville gets this one.
Okay. The lowest seed to win in the first week of the District 4 playoffs, you saw on Saturday night. Lewisburg went up to Central Columbia, got a 7-6 win with a late touchdown after being behind 3-0 for a while, 6-0 for a while. I guess first, what were your impressions on that game?
Well, we talked a lot about that first game between those two teams. It was a 26-point win for Central Columbia, but those teams are a little closer than that. Great defensive battle. Neither team really could get anything going. I think when they met the first time, Max Moyers had almost 200 yards and 2 scores, and Isaac Gensimer had 160 yards and 3 scores. Gensimer didn't top 50 yards. The Lewisburg defense probably played its best game of the season. Going up this afternoon to talk to their strong safety, Ronnie Lentz, for the cover story. A kid who hadn't played football since his freshman season, who Coach Persing called, their heart and soul, the back end of their defense. And he did a great job of it was that one extra body or that one extra guy on those sweeps that Central Columbia likes to do that they were able to string them out 1 and 2 yards. And the other big thing was getting Dylan Farinato back, and that set up the first touchdown. Was a long touchdown pass from almost called him Dylan. I almost called him Andrew. From Nick Shedleski to Dylan Farinato that set up Moyers' touchdown run. And I talked to both of those players after that game.
Were you a little surprised that they went pump and go on that play? No.
I mean, I was asking to go, just keep hitting it at the whole game, and we had those couple posts. Probably should have been pass interference on a couple of them. So, I mean, I was just urging Coach to just keep going at it. I knew they really couldn't keep up with me. So I just kept on asking, and we finally went after it, and we got it.
It really looked like Nick overthrew you on that one. Were you a little worried when it was in the air for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we practiced that, though. Just when the ball, you think it's overthrown, you're keeping your head down. You're not looking up for the ball. You're not turning around. You're not running with your arms out. You just got to go after it and then put your arms out last second. I mean, it worked out. So,
were you guys getting frustrated at all with the way this game was going? 6-0 for so long. You just couldn't seem to get anything started at all.
Yeah, I mean, our defense played lights out. I mean, it was an incredible performance to hold them to 6 points, 2 field goals. I mean, it was incredible. I mean, so our offense needed to do something, and I'm just so glad we came out and got that win for our defense.
Balls in the air, did you think you overthrew them?
A little bit. Put a little too much arc on it too, I thought, but Dylan got under it and made a great catch, dove for it. So it was just great to have him back, and it was just a great catch.
Were you guys setting them up for it for most of the game, it looked like?
Yeah, to be honest, when I was on the field, that's what I was thinking. We kept going hitch, and I was pretty sure Coach Persing was going to go over the top, and then we did.
Just take me through 90 yards for your season. What's going through your head kind of when you guys are jogging out in that huddle?
Just keep going. I mean, this is what we worked for all off season. So, I mean, we got a long way to go. District championship is the goal, but when you're on your own 10, you just got to push, and never give up.
It seems pretty impressive to hold Central Columbia without a touchdown for the whole game.
Yeah, it was, and they had a chance to they were driving to maybe get a go-ahead field goal late in the game. Lewisburg's defense came up big. Like I said, they did real well against Gensimer, and their quarterback, Trey Devlin, was scrambling to keep the drive alive late, and Ethan Spaulding made a great play to come up and strip the ball, force a fumble that Graydon Feldman recovered, and I talked a little bit with Ethan about the defensive effort on Saturday night.
Devlin's kind of scrambling away there from you. What are you seeing?
I just saw a big hole that I knew he could go through, and I knew I had to get there to at least stop them on that play. I didn't expect to strip the ball, but earlier in the game, my teammates told me he carries it out and about, and so we had a chance to strip it, and I just brought my arm down and got the ball away.
What was going through your head when you saw it bouncing around on the ground?
I saw his arm shoot out to get it, and I was like, all that for nothing, really. And then I saw whoever jumped on it, and I just let it all out. You saw me run to the sideline. So happy.
It really seems like, what was the big difference defensively for you guys between these two games?
Yeah, we put in a lot of new schemes against some of the plays they beat us on last time. We were really outnumbered on some of the plays, and so we flipped part of our defense to even out the sides, and I think that's really what caused the win for us.
And then the other thing was you guys on the outside and the cornerbacks kind of stopping that sweep, the Gensimer sweep. Did you guys play that a little differently this week? Or?
Honestly, we just kept all of our assignments the same. Outside guys keep contained, inside guys play their gap. It was all just lined up differently and according to what formation they were in.
So coming off that defensive struggle, tough win, now the Green Dragons head to Montoursville, which, again, higher seed, big winner, won 50-8 on Saturday night.
I think this goes a lot like Montoursville's Week 10 game, where it's going to be or like Lewisburg's game last week, another defensive struggle. They needed a late field goal to beat Selinsgrove in Week 10, 10-7. Talked to Coach Persing yesterday at Lewisburg, and Montoursville runs a lot of the same stuff that Lewisburg does. Oh. So, that kind of allows the Green Dragons to prepare and kind of know the terminology. Look at Montoursville's offense and see what what they would do in that situation. So he kind of likes that about it. I really think this is going to depend on Lewisburg's back end of its pass defense, and this time kind of in the pass defense. Hunter Shearer has thrown the most touchdown passes in District 4. He's up to 28. Wow. Jackson Delina is one of the best athletes and one of the best receivers in District 4. And a big help with that is they're getting Dylan Farinato back on the defensive end as well this week. Clear to go both ways. So that's going to be a big help for them. I think Lewisburg wins another defensive struggle. Like I said, I think I wrote this in my column. I don't know if I said this in the podcast. I really think they're kind of the dark horse in this playoff race. Just they hadn't really been all that healthy the last half of the season, and really hadn't been playing all that well. A lot of mistakes, and I think once they got that shorn up, that they would play better. And even last week, I think they would point to some mistakes in the first half that they made and some penalties that really cost them a chance to get an early lead against Central Columbia. So look for them to kind of clean the rest of that stuff up. And like I said, I really think this is a rematch of the 2010 district title game between Lewisburg and Danville.
Wow. Moving to a Friday night game where we're already in the district final. Selinsgrove heading up to Thompson Street Stadium to take on Jersey Shore. Selinsgrove last week in their playoff opener got down 9-0 early to Midwest, and then turned it on, won 21-9. Jersey Shore cruised, beat Columbia Montourville Tech 52-0.
I think the biggest part of this game is going to be what's the weather like on Friday night. Looking at this, Canton I think is the only other game that's probably going to be on grass at all this weekend, other than the Jersey Shore game. And again, it's supposed to rain on Friday. If you're familiar with other sports in this area, it's those fields up at Jersey Shore don't drain all that well. I think we spend most of the spring wondering if they're going to play softball and baseball. So Thompson Street Stadium is going to be pretty muddy, I would assume, on Friday night, even if it doesn't rain much. And the big thing for the Seals is figuring out this offense. They scored it's either 31 or 33 points the first time they played these guys, the second week of the season. Danny Schock had his best game, was up over 300 yards passing. The Seals struggled running the ball again for the most part on Friday night against Midwest. They had switched the offensive line around like we had talked about, and about midway, end of the first quarter, Joe Kahn and Nate Schoen were taking off their lineman numbers and putting their running back numbers on. And that kind of got the running game going a little bit. The thing with Selinsgrove is they've really, the last 2 weeks to score, other than the last touchdown drive, the long touchdown drive for the third touchdown, they've relied on big plays. The touchdown against Montorzio was a long touchdown pass, 40-yard screen pass to Joe Kahn against Midwest, and a 72-yard pass near the end of the half against Midwest. So if Selinsgrove can't hit those big plays against Jersey Shore, it's going to be a struggle for them. And the thing for the Bulldogs is, they seem to have gotten the running game back together these last 2 weeks. Kyle Toombs been up over 100 yards, and they've gone again to the Josh Malicki kid as kind of a 1-2 punch in their running game, and that's kind of taken a little bit of pressure off of Tanner Lorson, who has played well as a first-year starter. I just think with just the way Selinsgrove's offense has been struggling a bit this year, I think I'm going with Jersey Shore here. Always a tough road trip. I think that's the game I'm going to Friday night, so hopefully it's a good one. But yeah, I think I'm going with the Bulldogs in this one.
Now, I know you don't follow Jersey Shore as close as the teams that are actually in the Valley that we cover on a weekly basis, but do you have any sense of what's changed for their running game? It seemed like every week, it's now been 7 weeks, and Kyle Toom, this great running back, hasn't gotten over 100 yards, and now it seems like they've found something.
Well, it's been a couple weeks since I talked to Coach Gravish, but the last time I talked to him, I think it was before the Schick game, which was week 7, week 6, and they had kind of gone to more of a younger group.
Okay.
I've heard a lot of raves, especially in their defensive line, about it's Cody Peacock's younger brother. I think his name is Carter with a K. Has been playing well both ways as a freshman for them, and I just think that they were forced to kind of go younger. And again, this is, when we talked in the preseason, there was a lot of graduation losses in Division I. I mean, Jersey Shore's starting quarterback for 2 seasons is starting it like homing now as a freshman. So I think it was also just a matter of getting some experience and being a little, just being young at the beginning of the season.
Okay. We're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsor, Sun Orthopedics at Evangelical, and then we'll get back to the other 3 games on Friday night.
Whether it's time to live it up on the field or in the backyard, there's always time to play. The sports medicine team at Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical understands how important movement is to you and your family's life. With 4 convenient locations, the experts at Sun Orthopedics explore every treatment option available, from simple braces to advanced surgical techniques. They support you through the entire healing process, making sure you're back to being a warrior every weekend. Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get moving again.
Welcome back. We're going to dive into the Class 2A semifinals, where both games have pretty clear favorites. We got the 5th seed Troy, one of the only lower-seeded team to win last Friday night, upset Wellsboro by 6, headed to Southern Columbia, which doesn't lose.
Have they lost since you've been here? You were here?
They lost the state final.
Were you here for that state final in Steel Valley? All right, I was going to say. So they've lost 1 game since you've been here. No wonder that notion's strange to you. I think Southern. This is another game Southern can probably name its score. They got in and out against Lime Mountain last week pretty quickly. With 55 points in the first half, and I think Scott showed me his notebook after the second half. I think there was like 16 total plays in the second half with the running clock. I guess Troy's the hottest team probably in 2A, not named Southern and Mount Carmel, have won I think 5 in a row. That game forced 4 or 5 first half turnovers in that game against Wellsboro and held on. I just think that the Tigers are just too strong right now. With Stone Hollenbach's back, only 3 completions last week, first interception. That seemed like a disappointing game for them, but they didn't really, I don't want to say do much offensively. They scored 55 points, but their defense played so well, created so many turnovers, a lot of short fields. I guess the biggest thing to look out for is, Gage Garcia has a shot at Henry Hynoski's career touchdown record this week. I think he needs 3 to break the record. So be on the lookout for that. And
now, is that a Southern record or a district record?
It's a Southern record
okay.
because Dominic Bragg alone broke Henry's district record.
Got it.
So yeah, look out for that. And that's not a record that I thought would go so quickly at Southern Columbia. And I think they have a chance to, when this class of 2020 graduates, to have the state's all-time, a chance to have the state's all-time leading rusher, the state's all-time leading passer, and I think Cal Halliday has an outside shot at
receiver.
The state's all-time leading receiver, and then I think Cal Halliday has an outside shot at being the state's all-time leading tackler too. Wow. So, I just remember Derek Hicks over at Selinsgrove after losing that game week 10. So the first year you came, that'd be what, 2015? 2016, and thought, and I think it was, and just looking at me and going, oh, don't worry, they beat us 55-0 in the junior high game. They're gonna regroup. And yeah, he was right. They've regrouped pretty well. I think Southern Columbia probably rolls in the mercy role in this one.
Our other semifinal, Pitt's second-seeded Mount Carmel coming off a 41-6 win against third-seeded North Penn Mansfield. Won 16-6 over Bloomsburg. That's a game that we thought could possibly be an upset. Again, probably Red Tornadoes roll, but this North Penn Mansfield team was the 8th seed last year, went down to Southern week 11, and hit 2 long touchdown passes in the first quarter, and it was, maybe 21-16 Southern 5 minutes in before Southern at 63-16 or something like that. But so maybe there's a chance.
There's a bit of a chance. Yeah, I don't think they throw the ball as well as they did last year.
Okay.
I can't think of the kid's name, but their big receiver did graduate last year. This Mount Carmel team is, we talk every week about how good we think they are, and their statistician Jose Gonzalo sent out a thing. It's the second best offense in Mount Carmel history. The 1966 team had 4,688 yards and averaged 426.2, and this team is averaging 409.6 yards per game.
Wow.
So, when you're talking some great offenses at Mount Carmel, this is one of the best. North Penn Mansfield played real well defensively against Bloomsburg. I think they gave up 40-some in the first meeting between the two teams, and obviously just 6 last week. But obviously, this Mount Carmel offense is real tough. John Ayers did not play last week, Tanner Karicki, actually, kind of getting them ready for this stretch run. Probably we'll see them this week, at least for a little bit, I would assume, to get them ready for, next week's most likely championship game with Southern Columbia. Mount Carmel should roll in this one. It's just, I think it's just for both of those, Southern Columbia and Mount Carmel, it's just a matter of staying healthy and getting a chance to knock heads one more time next week.
The only other District 4 game this week, we talked about how Class A might be the most open bracket. Didn't turn out that way.
No, that part didn't go well.
Top-seeded Canton and 2-seed Muncie are going to face off Friday night. They won their 2 games. Some of the closer playoff games, but they still won by a combined score of 48-14.
Yeah, and Muncie got their quarterback Cam Good back last week, so he got hurt, I think, in the first game against Canton, which Canton won. This is the best Canton team in a long time. I think if you're as old as I am, I remember those Canton teams from the early '90s that Southern Columbia had a hard time getting by. One of my favorite names, a quarterback, Boo Perry. Later played at Wilkes, I believe it was. But I think you got to go with Canton in this one as the favorite since they won this the first time, and 10-1 now. But Muncie's defense, led by Mike, I can never say this name, Kustenbauer, has played real well. Their passing offense with the Good brothers, quarterback and receiver, experience too. Won the district title 2 years ago in kind of an upset. But yeah, I think this Canton team is pretty good. Having one of those seasons for the ages, and I think Canton beats Muncie. But I think this is another entertaining game up in the northern tier for a Class A championship, and we'll see how they match up in the state playoffs next week.
So that's all our District 4 playoff games. Make sure to check out Friday's paper for our game night, where Todd mentioned he'll have the cover story on Lewisburg strong safety Ronnie Lentz, and we'll preview all the games that feature Valley teams. And in Friday's sports section, we'll have Todd's column and picks. And I need to correct myself from last week. He had an over 80% winning percentage in the regular season, not 70, like I said. So I was shortchanging him a little. Friday night we'll have the live blog and the scoreboard for the 4 games, and then Saturday we'll put up a scoreboard again for the 2 3A semifinals. So make sure you guys can follow along with that both nights. Saturday morning, Saturday and Sunday again this week. You got to pick up the paper to check out all the football results, and Sunday's paper will be chock full with plenty of other playoff results too. I think we have 6 state games between soccer and field hockey also. And then Monday's paper will have our high school football notebook, and we'll be back next week for week 3 of the playoffs, week 13 overall.
Imagine if you got a wish for a massive volleyball league around here.
I know. Well, I can hope. Maybe one day.
See ya.
Thanks for watching.
Whether it's time to live it up on the field or in the backyard, there's always time to play. The sports medicine team at Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical understands how important movement is to you and your family's life. With 4 convenient locations, the experts at Sun Orthopedics explore every treatment option available, from simple braces to advanced surgical techniques. They support you through the entire healing process, making sure you're back to being a warrior every weekend. Sun Orthopedics of Evangelical. Hit refresh and get moving again.